Nathan Mitchell slouched on the couch, his eyes glued to his phone. It didn't take long for Laura, his wife of nearly a decade, to make a distressing call. Earlier that day, the private investigator had told him that she and her lover had just boarded a flight to Honolulu. He knew they intended to spend a week there, though that wasn't the story she had fed him. It was just the latest in a series of lies and poor decisions on her part. He wondered how he could have been so naive and oblivious for almost 10 years. He had poured everything into building a life with Laura, but now it was all crumbling. Taking another sip of coffee, he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, reflecting on the past decade. He had met Laura in college 13 years ago. Both were pursuing business degrees and happened to be in the same study group. This led to dating, eventually falling in love, and tying the knot after graduation. Nathan went to work for his father, who owned a successful chain of tire stores throughout the state. He had always helped his father during the summers, sometimes working in the store, replacing tires and brakes, and sometimes delivering tires and parts to local stores. Through this, he learned a lot about the business. After graduation, his father convinced him to join the company headquarters in the accounting department. Over the years, Nathan proved his worth, eventually becoming head of the department, working directly under Kevin Lewis, the CFO, who was set to retire in a few years. Nathan knew his father dreamed of passing the company to him upon his retirement, and he was confident that once Kevin retired, he would be promoted to CFO. Meanwhile, Laura became a realtor after they married. She went back to school, got her license, and excelled in real estate, making good money even in the worst market years. They seemed to have a good life, or so he thought. They had saved diligently, bought a nice house in the suburbs, and each drove a new car. From the outside, their marriage appeared solid. They didn't have children, which bothered Nathan more than it did Laura. In hindsight, he saw it as a hidden blessing. Initially, Laura claimed she had issues with her tubes and had them tied. He consoled her and suggested adoption, but Laura rejected the idea. He eventually accepted that they would never have children. However, the past year had been full of red flags that something was amiss in their relationship. Laura had started spending more time with her friends than ever before. He never denied her free time, knowing how stressful her job was, but what used to be bi-weekly happy hours lasting until 7 p.m. had turned into outings 2 or 3 times a week, often ending past midnight. Nathan expressed his unhappiness, but she brushed him off, saying she needed to blow off steam. "What are you doing until midnight?" he asked one night when she came home, her hair disheveled and smelling of cigarette smoke. "Oh, just having a few drinks," she replied. "Sometimes we dance if we're in the mood." "Look, Nate, this is none of your business. I'm a big girl, and I don't need you telling me what to do. Back off, okay?" Nathan stared at her in shock. She had never spoken to him like that before. Seeing his expression, she softened. "I'm sorry, Nate," she said. "I didn't mean to snap at you. It's just that work is so stressful." "You've been through tough times in the market before, and it didn't bother you," he said. "What's different this time?" "You have no idea how hard it is," she said. "The competition is getting worse, and the higher-ups are putting more and more pressure on us." "I understand, dear," he told her, "but there's no need to take your anger out on me. I'm on your side, remember?" She smiled and hugged him. "You're right, dear. Please accept my apologies." "Okay," he said, "but please take a shower or something. No offense, but you smell like an ashtray." "I'm sorry," she said. "There were a lot of people smoking in the club. I'll go take a shower." He lay down and was already asleep when she got to bed. Over the next few months, other changes occurred. The frequency of their sex decreased dramatically. Before all this started, they made love 3 or 4 times a week. Then it dropped to twice a week, and eventually, if he was lucky, once a fortnight. Worse, her attitude toward him had changed. She used to ask about his work and showed interest in his hobbies, but now she didn't seem to care. Then there was the day he caught her in a blatant lie. One day, he decided to drop by her office to invite her to lunch. However, when he got there, he was told that she had left to show some real estate. In the evening, when Laura came home after what she claimed was a day at the office, he asked her how her day had been. "I was in the office all day," she said. "I had a lot of paperwork to catch up on, so I just grabbed a sandwich from the vending machine." Nathan was shocked. She had just lied to him with a straight face. As far as he knew, it was the first time she had ever done that. He thought about pressing her but decided against it. She would probably explode, and he was too tired to deal with it. He wondered how many more times she had lied to him. Later that night, as they lay in bed, he rolled over and looked at her. She saw the worry on his face. "What's wrong, Nate?" she asked. "I'm concerned," he said. "About what?" she asked. "About us," he said. "I feel like we're drifting apart. Do you still love me?" "Of course I do, sweetheart," she said, hugging him. "You know that, don't you?" "I honestly don't know," he said. "I can't remember the last time you told me that. And we haven't had sex in a long time. You seem to go out more often than you're home." "I'm sorry," she said. "It's just the pressure of the job. I really love you. Please believe me." "Can you start showing me more?" he asked. "Of course, baby," she said, kissing his face. They made love that night, and Nathan felt better, but he still had concerns. Things went back to normal for about a month, but then it happened again. What the hell is going on? He asked himself for the 1000th time. He began to realize what was going on the day his longtime friend Eric Phillips called him and asked if he could get away for a while. "Sure, I can meet you for a beer," Nathan said. "What's going on?" "I really can't say over the phone, Nate," Eric said, "but it's important." "Okay," Nathan said. "I'll meet you there at 5:30 if I can make it." They finished talking, and Nathan met Eric at the bar that evening. Nathan wasn't too worried about being late, since Laura almost always left before 6 or 7 in the evening, sometimes later. "Okay, buddy," Nathan said, sipping his beer. "Spit it out. What's going on?" "I saw your wife today while I was out jogging," Eric said. "Yeah?" Nathan asked. "She sells real estate, probably out showing properties." "I'm sure she does," Eric replied, "but I never knew selling real estate involved kissing and holding hands." "What?" Nathan exclaimed. "Are you kidding me?" "I wish I was, buddy," Eric said. "I was driving down Riverside Drive and saw your wife coming out of a house with some guy. They were holding hands and then kissed, and it wasn't just a peck on the cheek. He was groping her." "That can't be right," Nathan said, feeling a pit in his stomach. "Are you sure it was my Laura?" Eric pulled out his cell phone and showed Nathan a picture. Sure enough, there was Laura making out with a man, his hands all over her. "Damn it," Nathan said quietly, handing the phone back. "Can you email me that picture?" "Sure," Eric said, pressing some buttons on his phone. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know, buddy," Nathan said, shaking his head. "We've had our issues, but I never thought she'd do something like this." "A friend of mine is a private investigator," Eric said. "I can put you in touch with him if you want." "Do it," Nathan said. "I need to find out what's going on." They said goodbye and headed out the door. When Nathan got home, Laura was in the kitchen, which was unusual. "You're home early," he said, kissing her. "Not that I'm complaining." She smiled and kissed him back. "Where have you been?" "I was downstairs having a beer with Eric," he said. "I didn't expect you back so early, so I figured I'd relax a bit." "Is everything all right with your friend?" she asked. "Not really," Nathan said. "He just found out his friend's wife was cheating on him." "Oh?" she asked, her voice a bit strained. "Yeah," Nathan said. "He saw her kissing and holding hands with some guy today." Nathan thought he saw her flinch slightly. "Well," she said, "maybe he's reading too much into it." "I don't know," Nathan said. "I'm just glad I don't have that problem." He thought she flinched again at that remark. "It would kill me if you ever did anything like that to me." "I would never do that to you," she said, wrapping her arms around him. "I love you too much." "I'm glad to hear you say that," he told her, kissing her sweet face. "So why are you home so early?" "Our company's annual convention is this weekend, so I decided to start packing and wanted to spend the next night or two with you since we'll be separated for a few days," she said. "It's in Las Vegas this year." "Where are you staying?" he asked. "At the Westgate Resort Hotel," she said. "It's a 4-star hotel." "When are you leaving?" he asked. "Friday, right after lunch," she said. "It was the day after tomorrow." "Did you get another award this year?" he asked. She always got awards for being the top salesperson in the region. "I guess so," she said. They kissed again, and then he suggested, "Why don't I walk you upstairs and congratulate you on another successful year?" She smiled and took his hand. "I thought you'd never ask," she said. They spent the evening making love, but Nathan was preoccupied with other thoughts. Would she cheat on him this weekend, he wondered? "I've got a vacation coming up," he said. Why don't I take a few days off and come with you? Maybe we can spend a week in Vegas, relax, and rebuild our relationship. After all, next week is our 10th anniversary. Sounds like fun, she said, but I'll be so busy with seminars and meetings that it's unlikely we'll be able to see each other. Besides, they expect me to go straight back to work after the convention. Why don't we celebrate our anniversary when I get back? I promise I'll make it up to you. All right, he said. I'll keep you posted. The next day, he contacted Eric and got the name and number of the private investigator. He made an appointment and went to see him before lunch. Good morning, Mr. Mitchell, the middle-aged man said as Nathan entered his cluttered office. Nice to meet you. Eric said you might be able to help me. Please call me Patrick. What can I do for you? Nathan explained the situation and told him about Laura's upcoming trip to Las Vegas. Vegas, huh? Patrick asked. Do you think she intends to hook up with someone at the convention? I don't know, Nathan said. Maybe. I have some acquaintances there who owe me a few favors, Patrick said. Tell you what, we'll keep an eye on her. If you want, we can sneak a camera and microphone into her room. It'll cost extra, you know. That's what I figured, Nathan said. But I need to know the truth. Patrick pulled out a digital audio recorder and handed it to him. It's voice-activated, Patrick said. Just put it under the car seat and turn it on. You can retrieve it later when she drives away. I assume she'll leave the car at the airport, Nathan said. She usually does. Good, Patrick said. Don't worry, we've got it covered. If she messes up, we'll figure it out. By the way, here's my private number. Call me anytime if you hear anything. Thank you, Nathan said, writing a check from his personal account. He and Laura had agreed to keep personal accounts separate from the joint checking account used for bills. Nathan had spent his money on clothes, little things, and gifts for Laura. He'd been saving for a cruise, but now he had a different use for the funds. That evening, Laura finished packing for the trip. Nathan offered to carry her things to the car, and she gladly accepted. That would be very helpful, she said, kissing him. He carried the bags to her car and put them in the trunk. He couldn't help but notice how much she had packed, more than enough for a weekend getaway. Curious, he opened the suitcase and immediately noticed a container of birth control pills with only 10 left. What the hell? He asked himself. Hadn't she said she'd had her tubes tied, or was that another lie? He looked at the clothes she had packed. Some seemed appropriate for business meetings, but most were club clothes. Tiny dresses he'd never seen before, and lingerie with ruffles. He also noticed a couple of very revealing bikinis, including an open micro bikini he'd only seen online. He pulled out his phone and took pictures. Opening her car door, he shoved the audio recorder under the seat and made sure it was on. Then he closed the car doors and made sure everything was locked. This night would probably be the last time we made love as husband and wife, Nathan thought. The next morning at breakfast, Laura gave him her room number and promised to call him every night. I love you, she told him, kissing his cheek. I love you too, he said. He watched her drive away from the house. When he arrived at work, he called Patrick and gave him her room number. Great, Patrick said. Thanks. I'll get right on it with my guys. In the afternoon, Nathan received a call from Laura, informing him that she was at the airport and getting ready for her flight. I'll call you when I'm checked into my room, she said. I'd appreciate it, he said. Remember, I love you. I love you too, baby, she said. I'm going to miss you. Sure you will, you deceitful he thought bitterly. Out loud, he said, I miss you too. After ending the call, Nathan noticed his father standing in the doorway. Everything all right, son? His father asked. You look like something's really bothering you. I don't know, Dad, Nathan replied with a sigh. His father stepped into the study and shut the door. Is something wrong at home? Do you want to talk about it? He asked gently. Nathan decided it was best to be honest with his father. He shared everything he had discovered so far. That's rough, son, his father said, shaking his head. I never would have guessed she'd do this to you. Me neither, Dad, Nathan said. If there's anything your mom and I can do to help, just let us know, his father said. We're here for you. Thanks, Dad, Nathan said, feeling a bit of relief. Nathan left work early and drove to the airport to check on Laura's car. He found it in the short-term parking lot and retrieved the audio recorder he had planted. The car was as immaculate as she always kept it. On the drive home, his phone rang. It was Laura. Hey, baby, she said. Just wanted to let you know I arrived safely. Thanks for calling, he said. I'm just getting settled in, she added. I'll call you tonight, love you. Love you too, he replied. Once home, Nathan turned on the audio recorder, hoping for nothing incriminating. Most of the tape was just road noise and the radio, but halfway through he heard something that made his blood run cold. Her phone had rung, and since it was connected to her car via Bluetooth, he could hear both sides of the conversation. Hey, baby, a man's voice said. Hi, Stallion, Laura replied. Stallion? Nathan thought incredulously. Who the hell is this? I can't wait to see you again, the man said. Last week was incredible. I'm glad you liked it, she giggled. Are we all set for next week? Next week? Nathan thought, stunned. Everything's ready, the man said. Did you tell your husband? Not yet, Laura said. Don't worry, honey, I've got it all under control. He doesn't suspect anything, does he? The man asked. No, he's clueless as usual, she replied. He'll believe anything I tell him. I hope you're right, the man said. Trust me, she said. He's so naive. All right, I'm about to pull up to the airport, the man said. Okay, she said. I'll see you at the hotel tonight. I can't wait, he said. Bye, love. Bye-bye, she said, ending the call. Nathan stared at the recorder in disbelief. He played the tape again to be sure he hadn't misunderstood. Not only was she cheating, but she was planning something for next week, their 10th anniversary, and it didn't involve him. Damn it, damn it, damn it, he fumed. How long has this been going on? And who the hell is this guy? He grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat at his desk, reflecting on the past few months. Had he really been so blind? What else was she hiding? Respecting her privacy was no longer an option. He knew she kept her home desk locked, but he also knew where she hid the key. He went to their bedroom and opened a small drawer in her jewelry box. The desk key was on a ring with several other keys. He took the ring and went to her office. He unlocked the desk and started going through her papers. Normally, he would never invade her privacy like this, but she had forfeited his trust. What he found shook him to his core. Laura had been lying to him throughout their marriage. He pulled out a folder with her bank records and was shocked to see how much she was saving from her paycheck. She was depositing far more than the agreed-upon 10% into her personal account, which now held over $250,000. Looking through her recent purchases, he saw she had bought a very expensive men's Rolex watch, undoubtedly for her lover, as she had never given him anything so lavish. She had also bought a lot of expensive clothes online, including some revealing Victoria's Secret lingerie he had never seen. But the worst was yet to come. He found medical bills from Planned Parenthood. She had gotten pregnant twice in the last 2 years and had abortions both times, paying cash from her account. He wondered if either child could have been his. He also saw she had been regularly buying birth control pills for at least the past 4 years. And there was a recent receipt for Plan B, the morning after pill, bought earlier that week. As if that wasn't enough, he found a receipt for a large down payment on an apartment in an affluent part of town. Was this her love nest or part of her exit strategy? There were also receipts for utilities and new furniture. He looked at the key ring and wondered if one of the keys was to this new apartment. He intended to find out. Turning on her computer, he knew she kept her passwords written down. Sure enough, taped to the bottom of the keyboard was a list of usernames and passwords. He entered the first one, and the computer booted up. He found a link to her online email and logged in. The email client opened immediately, showing her mailbox. She was so confident he would never snoop that she had saved her login information. Going through her emails, he was horrified by what he discovered. There were several emails to and from Luke Grant. Nearly all were explicit, with Luke talking about how much he enjoyed having sex with Laura and her reciprocating. These emails dated back almost a year, around the time he had first noticed changes in her behavior. Initially, they met in hotel rooms, but later they used houses she was selling. One email from 6 months ago partially answered one of his questions. "Did you take care of that little problem?" Luke asked. "Yes," Laura replied. "I got an abortion today." "Too bad you didn't keep him," Luke said. "You could have passed him off as Nathan's." "I can't do that," she replied. "As far as he knows, I can't have children. He'd know it wasn't his." Nathan recalled catching her in a lie around that time. B, he thought. Lying, conniving, cheating B. He continued reading their emails. At one point, Luke suggested they have sex in Nathan's bed, but Laura refused. "I won't do that to Nathan," she had written. Luke responded, "That dumb bastard has no idea what's happening." "No," she replied. "I'm not doing that." "What if you had your own place?" Luke suggested. "You could pay cash for a nice apartment with your commissions, and your husband wouldn't notice a thing." "You might be onto something," she answered. "I have my own account and Nathan never checks it. I'll look into it." That conversation took place 3 months ago. The receipt for the down payment was dated just over a month ago. "I bought a condo," she informed him in an email. "I made a down payment and new furniture is coming next week. Nathan is clueless." "Fantastic," Luke wrote back. "We'll have to break in every room." Nathan leaned back in his chair, floored by this new revelation. He continued reading through the emails. "Why stay with your husband?" Luke asked. "Why not just move into the apartment and leave him?" "Believe it or not, I still have feelings for him," Laura replied. "He may be a stuck-up accountant, but he treats me well. I only got the condo so we have a place to meet without getting caught at a hotel. Besides, you're still married." "Just say the word, and I'll leave Christ," Luke wrote back. "She's already a pain in the ass." "We'll see what happens after the conference," Laura replied. "After the conference? What does that mean?" Nathan wondered aloud. He began printing out her emails and copying the receipts when the phone rang. Laura's number flashed on the screen. "Hello," he answered. "It's me, baby," Laura said. "Are you okay? You sound off." "I have a terrible headache," he lied, not wanting to reveal his discovery. "I just wanted to let you know I'm settling in for the night," she said. "Take something for your headache and rest. I love you and miss you." "Yeah, me too," he replied, ending the call. He wondered if she noticed he hadn't said he loved or missed her. Truthfully, he was seething with anger, barely holding back from punching a wall. He decided to dig deeper into Luke's background and started searching the website of Laura's company. He quickly found Luke Grant's profile. The website described him as the regional manager, meaning Laura was having an affair with her boss. He printed Luke's profile and added it to his growing stack of evidence. Still restless, he decided to check out Laura's new apartment. He found the address and wondered if she had a security system. Among her papers, he found a set of numbers labeled alarm system. Of course she wrote it down, he thought. She writes everything down. He grabbed a pair of latex gloves from the garage to avoid leaving any traces. He found the complex easily and parked in her assigned spot. Wearing gloves, he tried one of the keys from the ring he found in her jewelry box. The door opened, and he stepped inside. He saw the alarm system remote on the wall and entered the code from her papers, disabling the alarm. Turning on the light, he looked around. The apartment was tastefully furnished, just like their home. Laura had always had good taste. Too bad she wasn't as loyal. Of course, there were no pictures of him. He hadn't expected any, knowing this was her secret hideaway. The kitchen had plates and silverware, but the refrigerator and pantry were empty. He was surprised to see the apartment fully furnished, with a large flat-screen TV and floral artwork on the walls. In the bedroom, he found more furniture, with long lace curtains hanging to the floor. She had always loved lace curtains, decorating their house with them. He noticed they hung directly over an electric heater, which seemed like a fire hazard. Opening the dresser drawers, he found underwear he had never seen before, including men's underwear that must belong to Luke. He took pictures with his phone. In the nightstand drawer, he found a card addressed to Laura. Opening it, he read, "Just wanted to say thanks for the watch. Can't wait for the housewarming party. Love, Luke." It made him want to tear Luke apart and destroy Laura for her betrayal. He found more clothes, both men's and women's, hanging in the closet. In the master bathroom, there were 2 toothbrushes by the sink and his and hers towels. He took more pictures. The second bedroom had a small desk and chair, with a network cable for her laptop. On the desk were several letters from utility companies. He photographed them, making sure the names and addresses were clear. The windows had the same long lace curtains, hanging in front of another electric heater. He noticed several potential fire hazards, like the absence of smoke detectors in the bedrooms and an old one in the kitchen. Ensuring everything was as he found it, he turned off the lights, reactivated the security system, and locked the door behind him. He drove home, considering his options. Divorce was inevitable. Even if she ended things with Luke and got rid of the apartment, he could never trust her again. He also knew that in many divorces, men often ended up worse off financially. From Laura's financial records, he knew she earned significantly more than he did and hoped that would spare him from paying alimony. He decided to consult with an attorney before taking any action. He also hoped that since she had bought the apartment in her name alone, he wouldn't have to give up their house or split the proceeds if they sold it. In his mind, she had abandoned him when she secretly purchased the apartment. Without children, child support and custody weren't concerns, but he wanted both her and Luke to pay for their betrayal. Violence wasn't an option. He didn't want to end up in jail. Back at home, Nathan looked up Lukery Grant in the phone book, hoping it was the same Luke Grant, and dialed the number. "Grant Residence," said a woman's voice. "Is this Mrs. Grant?" he asked. "Yes, it is. Who's calling?" The woman replied. "My name is Nathan Mitchell. Is your husband the regional manager for Acme Property?" Nathan asked. "Yes, he is," she said. "But he's away at a conference this weekend and will be visiting other offices next week. You'll have to call the regional office to leave a message for him there." "Actually, Mrs. Grant, it's you I need to speak with," Nathan said. "Oh?" she asked, sounding curious. "Yes, ma'am," Nathan continued. "I hate to tell you this, but my wife is having an affair with your husband." "Are you certain?" she asked, her voice tense. "Yes, I am," Nathan said. "And I can prove it. I can even show you where they meet if you want." She sighed deeply. "Is tomorrow okay?" she asked. "Sure," Nathan said. "What time works best for you?" "Make it 1 o'clock in the afternoon," she said. He gave her the address and directions to Laura's apartment. "I'll see you there," Nathan told her, ending the conversation. Feeling a grim satisfaction, he walked over to his desk and started making a to-do list. First, he decided to change the locks on the doors. He wanted that done before meeting Luke's wife at Laura's apartment. He considered getting drunk that night but dismissed the idea. Instead, he grabbed a slice of cold pizza and ate it while thinking over his options. Once he finished, he climbed the stairs and went to bed. The next morning, he got up early and went to the local hardware store. He bought everything needed to change the door locks and made another key for the apartment. By noon, he had changed all the locks. After showering, he grabbed his audio recorder and the printed emails from Laura's account and headed to her apartment to meet Luke's wife. When he pulled up in front of Laura's car, he noticed an attractive dark-haired woman sitting in a Toyota Corolla nearby. He approached the car and knocked on the window. She rolled it down and looked at him. "Are you Katie Grant?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes," she said. "You must be Nathan Mitchell." "That's right," he said, opening the car door for her. "Come with me, and I'll show you their love nest. But first, put these on," he added, handing her a pair of latex gloves. "We don't want to leave fingerprints." "Good idea," she said. They walked to the door, and Nathan used the key he had made to open it. He was relieved it worked. Disabling the security alarm, they stepped inside. Nathan led her to the bedroom, opening drawers and the closet so she could see Luke's clothes. "Oh my God," she said. "I've been looking for these things for weeks. I wondered where his clothes were disappearing to." "Has your husband been wearing a Rolex watch lately?" Nathan asked. She nodded. "Yes," she said. "He told me it was a gift from management." Nathan shook his head and pulled a card from Laura's nightstand. He opened it and showed it to her. She read the note and began to cry. "Is that his handwriting?" Nathan asked. "Yes," she said, sobbing. "That's not all," he said, pulling out the emails and the audio recorder. She read the emails, tears streaming down her cheeks. Then he played the recording from Friday. "I'm sorry for all of this," he said, hugging her. He wanted to cry too, but held back. "It's not your fault," she said. "I've suspected something like this for a long time, but I had no proof." After a while, she pulled herself together and looked at him. "So what are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to divorce her," he said. "What about you?" "I'll throw that rat bastard out of the house as soon as I see him," she said, her resolve strengthening. She stopped crying and looked at him. "I have an idea," she said. "What is it?" he asked. "They want to live here together, right? Why don't we help them?" she suggested. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I mean, why don't we pack their things and bring them here?" she replied. Nathan thought for a moment and then smiled. "I like that idea," he said. "But we'd better hurry. They'll be back in a day or two." She shook her head. "Luke said he'd be gone for a week after the convention," she said. "I bet Laura will find an excuse to leave too." Nathan remembered the recorded conversation where Laura had asked if everything was ready for next week, but hadn't specified their plans. "Damn it," he said. "I guess you're right. Still, I want her stuff out of my house as soon as possible." "I agree," she said. "Let's meet back here in about 3 hours." "Works for me," he said. "I'm just going to throw her stuff in trash bags, so I think I can do that and be back here in 3 hours." "See you later then," she said, standing up. Nathan looked at her intently. She was shorter than Laura, with a slender figure and a cute appearance. Luke was a fool for cheating on this woman. They both drove off to their respective homes. About 3 hours later, they met back at the condo, their cars loaded with bags of the couple's belongings. They carried the bags into the nearly empty second bedroom, not caring if anything got broken. They knew it would take the two cheating spouses hours to sort through everything. "I didn't take much care with his things," she said. He laughed. "Me neither," Nathan said. They shared a high five. He looked at her. "I'm starving," he said. "Me too," she said. "I could go for a nice, juicy hamburger." "A big fat cheeseburger sounds perfect," he said. "I know just the place," Katie said with a smile. "Would you like to join me? My treat." "Lead the way," Nathan replied. He drove toward a bar he and Eric frequented, with Katie following behind in her car. When they parked, Katie looked up at the front of the building. "A bar?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Trust me," Nathan said. "They have the best burgers in town. You'll love it." "All right," she said with a grin. "Just don't get me drunk and take advantage of me." He laughed. "Tempting as that might be, I wouldn't dream of it." "Damn," she said, laughing as they walked inside. They ordered beers, burgers, and fries. As they ate, they shared stories about their failing marriages. Her story echoed his own in many ways. She met Luke in college and they married soon after. She wanted kids, but he didn't. Luke started working for Acme Property, while she took a job with a home remodeling company, working in accounts receivable. "Are you a CPA?" Nathan asked. She shook her head. "No, I haven't gotten that far yet, but I hope to someday." Nathan told her about his background and work. "We're always looking for good people," he said. "Maybe if you give me a resume, we can help each other out." "I can do that, Mr. Mitchell," she said, taking a bite of her burger. At that moment, Nathan's phone rang. He saw Laura's number and answered it. "Hello," he said neutrally. "Hey, baby," Laura slurred, clearly having been drinking. "What are you doing?" "Just grabbing a burger at the bar," he replied. "What's up?" "Guess what?" she exclaimed. "I got the Best Salesperson Award." "I'm happy for you," he said, his voice flat. "And they want me to stay in Vegas next week to work with their agents," she continued, oblivious to his tone. "Isn't that wonderful? They're even talking about promoting me to manager soon." "That's great," he said, biting back his true thoughts. "But what about our anniversary? It's this Wednesday." "I know, and I'm sorry about that," she said. "Maybe we can celebrate next weekend." "Don't worry about it," he said, masking his frustration. "I know your work is important to you. I wouldn't want you to miss out on a big opportunity." "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, suddenly defensive. "Nothing," he replied. "It's just that 10 years of marriage is a big milestone, but I understand how important your work is. Don't worry about it." "Yes, my work is important, but I thought you'd be happy for me," she said. "I am happy for you," he told her. "Go focus on your work. Don't worry about me." "I love you," she said. "Yeah, me too," he replied, ending the call. He looked at Katie. "So that's it," he said. She shook her head in disbelief. "She really chose Luke over your anniversary?" she asked, placing her hand on his. Nathan felt a wave of emotion. A woman he barely knew was showing more concern for him than his own wife. "What a bitch," he muttered. "I'm sorry," Katie said softly. "Thanks," he said, managing a weak smile. He pulled out Patrick's card and dialed his private number. "Patrick," he said when the older man answered. "Nathan Mitchell here. I just talked to Laura, and she said she'll be in Vegas for another week." "And you don't believe her?" Patrick asked. "Not for a second," Nathan replied. "I was working on your report," Patrick said. "But I can have my guys watch them and see what they do. The conference ended a couple of hours ago, and they're having fun right now. Almost everyone will be going home tomorrow. By the way, your wife and her lover spent the night together last night. I have a video you might be interested in. I'll email it to you if you'd like. It will all be in my report." "That would be great," Nathan said. "Thanks." He ended the call and looked at Katie. "Tomorrow we'll find out what's really going on," he said. "These two lovebirds spent the night together. My private investigator is going to email me some video footage. Would you like to watch it with me? Not really, she said, but I feel like I should. He nodded in understanding. Let's go to my house, he said, standing up. After paying for their food, they left the bar and headed to his house. By the time they settled into his office, a video had arrived in his email. Would you like something to drink before we watch this? He asked. Sure, she said. A Coca-Cola if you have it. I'll get one, he said, heading to the kitchen. He returned with 2 cold Cokes and handed one to her. He turned on the video, and they watched Laura and Luke engaging in various sexual activities. Both Katie and Nathan fought back tears as they watched their spouses together. The pillow talk that followed was even more painful. What do you think our spouses are doing now? Laura asked. If I know Katie, she's probably watching one of her boring movies or reading one of her stupid books, Luke said. Yeah, I know what you mean, Laura replied. I think Nathan's probably playing with another one of his dumb spreadsheets or looking at reports. Luke grinned. You'd think he was saving the world or something. Christ, his dad's company sells tires. What's so important about that? So have you figured out what you're going to tell that idiot after the awards banquet tomorrow? Luke asked. Yeah, Laura said. I'll just tell him I was asked to stay in Vegas for a week to cover for the local reps. He'll believe it. Hell, he'll believe anything I tell him. I could tell him the moon is made of green cheese, and he'd agree. By the time he figures it out, we'll be on a beach in Hawaii. I can't wait to see you in that new sling bikini you bought, Luke said. Katie exploded in anger. Hawaii? That bastard is taking some slut to Hawaii. I'm going to rip his balls off. She looked at Nathan. I'm sorry for calling your wife a slut. Don't be, he said. I'd call her the same thing. They resumed watching the video. So, Laura, Luke continued, what about your anniversary? Are you just going to skip it? Hawaii seems much more interesting than a night at a steakhouse, she said. I promised to make it up to him. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Luke looked at her. You're cold, you know that? She shrugged. It's only our 10th anniversary. There will be more. Who cares? I need you right now. With that, they started having sex again, prompting Nathan to stop the video. I've seen enough, Nathan said. Have you? Katie nodded, tears streaming down her face. More than enough, she said. I'm calling a divorce lawyer on Monday. Would you like to join me? Nathan said. Do you mind? She asked quietly. Not at all, he said. Katie broke down in sobs. Nathan put his arm around her, letting her cry on his shoulder. He wanted to cry too, but held back, focusing on comforting her. Do you mind if I stay the night? She asked. No sex. I just want to be held. Of course you can stay, he said. Stay as long as you need. Thank you, she said. I can't believe I wasted all those years on that jerk. I've been falling for his lies all this time. I know exactly what you mean, Nathan said. He led her upstairs to the master bedroom and found an old t-shirt that would be long enough for her to wear to bed. She took it and went into the bathroom to change. After she returned, he changed into his pajamas and climbed into bed. She came out of the bathroom wearing one of Nathan's old t-shirts, and he almost gasped when he saw her. He had always thought Laura's legs were nice, but Katie's legs were the slimmest and most beautiful he'd ever seen. She smiled as she climbed under the covers. What's the matter? She asked playfully. Haven't you ever seen a woman's legs before? None that look as good as yours, Nathan said honestly. Flattery will get you everywhere, sir, she teased. He wrapped his arm around her and pulled her close, inhaling her scent. She put her hand on his chest and pressed herself against him. Do you know you're the only woman besides my wife that I've been in bed with in the last 10 years? He asked. And you're the only man I've been with besides my husband, she replied. They stared into each other's eyes for what felt like an eternity before they fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms. The next morning, they woke up still pressed against each other. Good morning, sleepyhead, she said, smiling. You don't need to move on my account. Good morning, beautiful, he replied. I'll be right back. He went into the bathroom and relieved himself, which was rather difficult considering his state of arousal. When he came out, Katie had already cleaned up the kitchen and was making scrambled eggs and bacon. He glanced at the clock on the wall and saw that it was 8:30 in the morning. His attention shifted back to Katie. He loved watching her cook in his old t-shirt and was momentarily reminded of the happy times when Laura used to make breakfast for them. "Damn, that smells good," he said. "I hope you don't mind me using your kitchen," she said. "Not at all," he told her. "I can't remember the last time someone made me breakfast." "Laura never cooked for you?" she asked. "She did at first," he said. "But she stopped a long time ago. Said it took too much time and she needed to prepare for her clients." "Bullshit," Katie muttered. "Agreed," he said. The smell of bacon filled the air as she set a large plate in front of him. He devoured the food like a man who hadn't eaten in days. "Damn, that was delicious. Do you cook like this every morning?" he asked. "When I can," she said. Nathan's cell phone rang. Glancing at the screen, he saw Patrick's name and number and answered it. "Good morning, Patrick," he said. "You work Sundays now?" Patrick laughed. "More often than I'd like. I just wanted to let you know that your wife and her lover boarded their flight from Las Vegas just before 6 o'clock this morning. They had a 40-minute layover in Los Angeles, and their plane left there about an hour ago. They'll land in Honolulu in about 5 hours. I have the flight information if you need it." "Yeah," Nathan said, grabbing a pen. "What flight are they on?" "They're on American Airlines Flight 31, Patrick said. "I have a man in Honolulu ready to pick up their trail when they get there." "Thanks, Patrick," Nathan said, writing down the information. He ended the call and looked at Katie. "All right, here we go. They're on their way to Hawaii." Meanwhile, on the plane, Laura sat back in her seat and looked out the window at the Pacific Ocean below. "This is it," she thought to herself. She glanced at Luke, who was already sound asleep next to her. She closed her eyes for a moment and thought about the last 10 years. For a brief moment, she felt a pang of guilt for what she was doing to her husband, who had foolishly trusted her. Deep down, she knew this was just the latest in a series of bad decisions, but she rationalized that she owed it to herself. She thought she could end the affair without Nathan ever finding out, allowing their marriage to continue as if nothing had happened, eventually retiring and growing old together. Her first bad decision was telling Nathan she couldn't get pregnant. In reality, she could, but she didn't want the responsibility of children. The idea of motherhood didn't appeal to her, so she told Nathan she had to have her tubes tied due to medical complications. He accepted her explanation and eventually agreed. But when she started having problems with her IUD, she switched to standard birth control pills and used the calendar rhythm method to avoid sex on her most fertile days. This worked most of the time, but she still ended up getting pregnant twice. The first time was with her husband. Fearing his reaction, which would expose her lie about being unable to conceive, she discreetly had an abortion, paying for it out of her personal funds. They had set up personal accounts as well as a joint account from the beginning, contributing 10% of her net paycheck to the joint account. She became very sneaky, paying for the abortion with her own money, keeping Nathan in the dark. Her second pregnancy was with Luke about 6 months ago. She told him about it, and they decided to have another abortion, again paying out of her personal account. She hoped Nathan would never find out. Then there were her affairs. For the first 7 years of their marriage, she was faithful. But one day, she met a very handsome and wealthy client. It was a decision made in a split second, but one she never regretted. They had passionate sex in the bedroom of a large house she was showing, and he bought the house outright to show his appreciation. She didn't do it often, maybe 10 times over the next year and a half, but she later learned that other agents did it too. She felt a little guilty, but reasoned that if other girls could do it and get away with it, so could she. In her mind, it had nothing to do with Nathan. She never stopped loving him, and what he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. Then she met Luke, and everything changed. He was everything Nathan wasn't. Nathan liked to analyze everything before making a decision, while Luke was spontaneous and made decisions instantly. Nathan's life and career had been set long ago, working for his father all his life, and still doing so to this day. Nathan was on track to become the CFO of his father's tire company, and one day, he would take over as president and CEO. Luke, on the other hand, lived day to day with no clear vision for the future. While Nathan meticulously planned for the years ahead, Luke embraced the present moment. Their differences extended into the bedroom as well. Nathan made love to her with care, focusing on her pleasure, while Luke took her with an intensity that left her feeling utterly destroyed. Initially, they met at motels or houses she had listed for sale, but Laura became paranoid that someone might recognize them and inform Nathan or Luke's wife, Katie. One night, Nathan had expressed concern that they were drifting apart, which caused Laura to freak out and grow cold toward Luke temporarily. She tried to focus all her love on her husband, but it didn't last. Luke wanted to resume their affair, but she feared Nathan would discover them. To solve this, she decided to buy her own apartment, a private place for her and Luke. Luke suggested they use the bed she shared with her husband, but she refused, still harboring some feelings for Nathan. It helped that she and Nathan had long ago decided to file their tax returns separately. She could leave the apartment with him and still get a tax break, rationalizing it as a win-win. This led to her decision to spend a week in Hawaii with Luke. She took a week's vacation from work. Luke told his wife he would be traveling for the next week, which was not unusual for him. Laura lied to Nathan, saying she would be in Vegas for a week. She figured a few phone calls would suffice, and Nathan would remain none the wiser. She felt lucky that Nathan believed everything she told him. The only downside was missing their 10th wedding anniversary, but she convinced herself she would make it up to him later, and her secret would stay safe. She smiled as she looked at the blue water below, thinking of Hawaii. Luke had bought her a very risque bikini for the trip, and the thought of wearing it excited her. She fought the urge to touch herself right there in her seat, deciding to wait until she could sneak away to the bathroom. She pulled out her phone to check for messages or calls. She wasn't surprised to see that Nathan hadn't texted or emailed her. He preferred phone or face-to-face communication. She grinned to herself, feeling the plane shudder. Thinking they had hit turbulence, she noticed the engines sounded different. When she looked out the window and saw the plane plummeting, she realized something was terribly wrong. "Oh God," she thought, "this is it. We're going to crash. I'm going to die." The oxygen masks dropped, and she heard passengers, including Luke, screaming. Flight attendants tried to prepare everyone for the inevitable. Tears streaming down her face, Laura made one last decision. Meanwhile, Nathan and Katie had finished breakfast and put away the dishes. They sat down to discuss their next steps. Nathan was impressed by Katie's ability to analyze the situation, feeling closer to her than he had to Laura in months. He was just returning to the table with a second cup of coffee when his phone buzzed. Laura's name and number popped up on the screen, and he put the call on speaker. "Hello?" he asked. "Nate!" Laura yelled. It was hard to hear her over the noise and the shouts of other passengers. "Yeah, Laura, what's going on?" he asked. "No time. Airplane down. Sorry." Her voice was cut off abruptly. Nathan and Katie looked at each other, shocked. He tried calling Laura back, but it went straight to voicemail. "Try calling Luke," he told Katie. She ran to the front room and grabbed her phone. She tried to call but shook her head. "It went straight to voicemail," she said. Nathan went to his home office, turned on his computer, and searched for the airline's contact number. He called and was eventually able to speak to someone who confirmed they were investigating reports of the plane going down. He left his name, phone number, and details about Laura and Luke, and was told he would be contacted with more information. He also left Katie's details so she could be reached as well. He did a quick Google search, but nothing came up. He figured it would be at least an hour before there was any news. They walked to the front room and turned on the TV, hoping for updates. Nathan flipped through channels, but nothing was reported. Finally, a news network mentioned that an American Airlines flight to Honolulu had crashed in the Pacific Ocean, but provided no details. "Oh God," Katie said, covering her mouth with her hand. Nathan hugged her and silently prayed that Laura was alive. Despite her betrayal, he didn't want her to die. An hour later, the phone rang. He turned off the TV and answered it. "Mr. Mitchell?" a woman asked. "That's me," he said. "I'm calling to confirm that your wife's flight has crashed," she said. "I don't have any further information at this time, but we will update you as soon as we know more." "Thank you," Nathan said, ending the conversation. He and Katie hugged, shedding a few tears. A few minutes later, Katie's phone rang, and she received the same information. Shortly after that, Nathan's father called. It wasn't unusual for his parents to call when they heard something on the news. "Hey, Nate," his father said. "Hey, Dad," Nathan said. "How are you doing?" "Just got back from church. Did you see the news about that accident?" his father asked. "Yes, I did," Nathan said. "That's terrible," his father said. "By the way, how's Laura doing? Isn't she on her way back from Vegas?" "She's not doing so well right now, Dad," Nathan said. "She was on that plane that crashed." "What?" his father asked, shocked. What was she doing going to Hawaii without you? She was with her boyfriend, Nathan said. Oh my God, the older man said. I'm so sorry to hear that, son. Listen, take a week off and sort things out. If there's anything we can do, just give me a call, okay? Thanks, Dad, Nathan said. He ended the conversation, his mind overflowing with conflicting emotions. On the one hand, he was saddened that Laura was likely dead. On the other hand, he was furious at her for cheating on him and at himself for not confronting her. Strangely, he wasn't upset about the fact that her death meant no divorce. Then another thought occurred to him. He would have to handle all her final expenses, including the apartment. Shit, he muttered to himself. He looked at Katie, wondering how she would cope with everything. An idea struck him, and he walked over to her. Katie, he said, why don't you sell your apartment and move in here with me? She looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. Are you serious? She asked. Yes, I am, he said. I have another bedroom upstairs, and we'll both have a lot to deal with in the coming months. Maybe we could help each other get through it. She thought for a moment before answering. Why not? She said. But only on one condition. What is it? He asked. You let me sleep with you, she said. Really? Nathan asked, taken aback by how quickly things were moving. He wondered if it was wise, but decided to throw caution to the wind. Yes, she said. It's been a long time since I felt truly comfortable. Last night, I felt satisfied for the first time in years. Is that okay with you? It's more than fine, he said. All right, she said. Then I'll run to the house to get my things and be back by tonight. Nathan nodded. I'll be here, he said. After she left, he called Chloe, the woman who ran the office where Laura usually worked. Hello, she said, answering the phone. Chloe, this is Nathan Mitchell, he said. Oh, hi, Nathan, she said. How was Hawaii? I don't know, he said. I hear it's nice this time of year. Why? She asked. Well, Laura said you two were going there after the company meeting, Chloe said. I assumed you were on your way. No, Nathan said. She went to Hawaii, but not with me. She went with Luke. What? Asked Chloe, shocked. Right, Nathan said. The plane they were on went down in the Pacific Ocean today. You may have seen it on the news. Oh no, said Chloe. Do you know if she survived? I don't think any of them did, he said. I'm so sorry, she said. Please accept my condolences and thank you for letting me know. I don't know if you're aware, but the company carries life insurance on all its employees. I'll take care of the paperwork first thing, but I'll need something from the airline. Can you get it to me? Yes, I'll get what I can, he said. But I have a question for you. What is it? Asked Chloe. Did you know Laura was having an affair with Luke? He asked. I suspected something was going on. There were rumors, but nothing concrete, Chloe said. We don't usually gossip about such things in the office. I see, he said. Well, that's all I've got. I'll be in touch. Thank you, she said. And again, my condolences. I appreciate that, Nathan said, ending the conversation. That night, as Nathan and Katie were watching television, a report about the crash came on. According to the report, the last moments of the plane's flight were captured by a crew member aboard a cargo airliner only a couple of miles from the crash site. The TV station showed an amateur video that clearly depicted the plane rapidly descending nose first. It seemed to fall apart as it hit the water. The report stated that the cargo ship had changed course to see if they could find survivors. They pulled several bodies from the water, but there were no survivors. They also recovered a lot of luggage, including Laura and Luke's belongings. However, Laura and Luke's bodies were not found. The next few months were hectic for Nathan and Katie. She moved in with Nathan and sold her house. Nathan had to handle Laura's apartment, which he eventually sold, donating the contents. Both he and Katie received $500,000 insurance checks from Acme Property for the deaths of their spouses. Katie moved in with Nathan, and they immediately began erasing all traces of Laura. Photos were thrown out, knickknacks were packed away, and furniture, especially the bed, was replaced. Nathan let family members take what they wanted. The rest, including the 2 cars, was either sold, donated, or scrapped. Nathan also had to sort out Laura's bank accounts. After months of paperwork, he received a check for about $250,000. Lawyers circled like vultures, looking to cash in on the accident. Further investigation revealed that the crew had misunderstood the onboard computer warnings and taken the wrong actions. The plane had fallen at about 12,000 feet per minute, hitting the water at about 135 miles per hour. taking just over 3 minutes to crash. Laura's last moments, some of which she spent on the phone with him, must have been terrifying. He thought her last act was one of remorse, spurred by the realization of her impending death. But it was too little, too late. Fortunately, the airline reached a settlement with all affected families, paying each passenger's estate just over $175,000. Nathan and Katie made over $6 million after everything was accounted for. Taxes took their share, but they were left with a substantial fortune. Since neither Laura's nor Luke's remains were found, no funeral was necessary. However, Nathan and Katie held memorial services mostly for their families, shedding no tears for their deceased spouses. 3 months into her move, Katie left her job and settled in with Nathan. By this time, they were deeply in love. One night, while having dinner at a local Texas roadhouse, Nathan got down on one knee and proposed. Katie squealed with delight, and those around them applauded. "It's about time you made an honest woman out of me," she whispered in his ear. "Why?" he asked playfully. "Because you're going to be a daddy," she said. Nathan covered her face with kisses. "I love you so much," he told her. "I love you even more," she replied. "Just one favor." "What is it?" he asked. "Please don't ask me to fly anywhere," she said. He laughed, hugging her tightly. "Don't worry, dear," he said.